a WikiVidi documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Romania in the Eurovision Song Contest 2018. Romania will participate in the Eurovision Song Contest 2018 with the song "Goodbye," written by Alexandru Matei, Alin, Neagoe, and Cristina Caramarcu, and performed by the Humans. The song was selected through a national final organized by the Romanian broadcaster Televiziunea Română. Romania was drawn to compete in the second semi-final of the Eurovision Song Contest, which will take place on the 10th of May 2018 in Lisbon, Portugal. Although the exact running order has not yet been determined, it is known that the country will appear in the first half of the show. Background. Prior to the 2018 contest, Romania had participated in the Eurovision Song Contest 18 times since its first entry in 1994. Its highest placing in the contest, to this point, has been third place, which the nation achieved on two occasions, in 2005 with the song "Let Me Try," performed by Luminito Angle and System, and in 2010 with the song "Playing with Fire," performed by Paula Salingandovi. To this point, Romania has qualified to the final on every occasion that they participated since the introduction of semi-finals to the format of the contest in 2004. In 2017, Yodel It, by Alinka and Alex Floria placed 7th in the final. Selecția Națională 2018. Selecția Națională 2018 was the national selection organized by TVR and its regional studios in order to select Romania's entry for the Eurovision Song Contest 2018. The competition consisted of 6 shows, 5 semi-finals featuring 12 songs each, and a final featuring 15 songs, held throughout January and February 2018, with the final on the 25th of February 2018. The slogan for the 2018 selection was "Eurovision Unest Romania." Each show took place in a different city in Romania, in celebration of the 100th anniversary of the Union of Transylvania with Romania, which gave the country its largest peacetime geographical extent. TVR opened a submission period for artists and composers to submit their entries between 15 November and the 15th of December 2017, during which 72 entries were received. All entrants got to participate in auditions on 19 and the 20th of December, in front of a jury made up of 5 music industry professionals. The auditions were broadcast on 12, 13 and the 14th of January 2018 on TVR1. 60 songs qualified for the semi-finals, 12 for each semi-final, which took place throughout January and February 2018. The qualifying songs were revealed on the 22nd of December. No performer was allowed to have 2 different songs in the semi-final stage. But there was no such limit for songwriters. It was also disallowed to circumvent this rule by replacing the performer. The top 3 acts selected by the jury from each semi-final, for a total of 15 finalists, qualified for the final held on the 25th of February. The winner was then determined by 100% televoting. Competing entries. TVR announced the 60 semi-finalists on the 22nd of December 2017. Freya and her entry, "Fix Me," were announced as disqualified on the 9th of January 2018, as the song had been released in China prior to the 1st of September 2017 cutoff date, to the surprise of the singer and her team. As a result of this, Toma Cohen and his song, "Baby You're the Only One," participated in the semi-finals instead. Shows. The semi-final split, including the host cities and dates for the semi-finals, was revealed on the 9th of January 2018. The host city and venue for the final were revealed on the 19th of January 2018. All 6 shows were presented by Diana Dumitrescu and Cesar Uatu. The day before each show, TVR aired a behind-the-scenes program containing interviews, as well as pre-recorded inserts such as rehearsal and press conference footage, and other backstage material. The jury voting in each semi-final consisted of sets of 1, 8, 10 and 12 points given by each juror to 10 of the entries competing that night. In case of a tie, the entry with the higher amount of 12 points would prevail. If the tie persisted, then the amount of 10, 8, 7 points, and so on, was decisive. As there were no additional tie-break criteria, One perfect tie was achieved. Semi-final 1. The first semi-final took place on the 21st of January 2018, at Teatral Municipal, Mayor Gheorghe Pastia, in Focșani, where 11 entries competed for 3 spots in the final. Alexia and Matei, Echoes and Eduard Santa qualified for the final, placing first, second, and third respectively, while Tom Hartis, who was supposed to perform sixth, withdrew due to health problems. The Green Room correspondent for this show was Anca Modilianu, a presenter for TVR Iași. The opening act of the show was Luminitu Angle, performing Horror din Moldova, alongside the Tara Vrose Folk Ensemble. A 30-minute recital by the band Pasărea Rock was the interval act of the show. Pasărea Rock returned as the closing act. Semi-final 2. The second semi-final took place on the 28th of January 2018, at Teatral Național, Mihai Eminescu, in Timișoara, where 12 other entries competed for 3 spots in the final. Jukebox featuring Bella Santiago, Rafael, and Friends, and Mihai qualified for the final, placing first, second and third respectively. The Green Room correspondent for this show was Doriana Dalps, a presenter for TVR Timișoara. The opening act was Ricardo Caria performing Amar Pelostua. Caria returned as a closing act, performing Lisboa. The interval act consisted of a series of performances by Cargo, Lavinia Raducanu, and Nada Ukraden. The city contributed 200,000 lei towards organizing the event. Semi-final 3. The third semi-final took place on the 4th of February 2018, at Teatral Național, Marian Sorescu, in Craiova, where 12 other entries competed for 3 spots in the final. Erminiosini and Tiziana Camlin, Zandra and Varos qualified for the final. The former two came joint first in the jury vote, while the latter placed third. The Green Room correspondent for this show was Alina Serban, a presenter for TVR Craiova. The guest performers of this semi-final were Bye Bye, Free Stay, Dan Helsiuk, and Mihaela Alexa. Craiova municipality contributed 190,379 lei towards organizing the event. Semi-final 4. The fourth semi-final took place on the 11th of February 2018, in Turda, where 12 other entries competed for 3 spots in the final. The venue chosen for this semi-final was the Rudolf Mine in Salina Turda. Turda municipality contributed 140,000 lei or less towards organizing the event. Claudia Andis, Thierry and Feli qualified for the final, coming first, second and third, respectively. The Green Room correspondent for this show was Loredana Korkis, a presenter for TVR Cluj. The guest performers of this semi-final were Elena Gheorghe, Ad Libitum, and Katia Carbune. Semi-final 5. The fifth semi-final took place on the 18th of February 2018, at Sala de Spectacol, Mihai Eminescu, in Sighișoara, where 12 other entries competed for 3 spots in the final. The Humans, Teodora Dinu and Dora Gaetanovici qualified for the final, placing first, second and third, respectively. The Green Room correspondent for this show was Simona Boanta, a journalist for TVR Târgu Mureș. The interval act consisted of a pre-recorded open-air Direcția 5 concert held in Piața Cității in Sighișoara the previous evening. The final took place on the 25th of February 2018, at Sala Polivalenta in Bucharest. Out of the 15 remaining entries, the audience chose the Humans and their song, Goodbye, to represent Romania at the Eurovision Song Contest 2018. The Green Room correspondents for this show were Ioana Boicu and Sonia Argentianescu. Guest artists included Alex Calancia Band, Alinka Basila, and Doridos. At Eurovision. The Eurovision Song Contest 2018 will take place at the Altice Arena in Lisbon, Portugal, and will consist of 2 semi-finals on 8 and the 10th of May, and the final on the 12th of May 2018. According to Eurovision rules, all nations with the exceptions of the host country and the Big Five are required to qualify from one of 2 semi-finals in order to compete for the final. The top 10 countries from each semi-final progress to the final. Voting. Voting during the 3 shows involved each country awarding 2 sets of points from 1, 8, 10 and 12, one from their professional jury and the other from televoting. Each nation's jury consisted of 5 music industry professionals who are citizens of the country they represent, with their names published before the contest to ensure transparency. This jury judged each entry based on vocal capacity, the stage performance, the song's composition and originality, and the overall impression by the act. In addition, no member of a national jury was permitted to be related in any way to any of the competing acts in such a way that they cannot vote impartially and independently. The individual rankings of each jury member as well as the nation's televoting results were released shortly after the grand final. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Would you like to know more?